Okay, at this video, I'm going to show you how to extract a normal map that you can use with your model here. So what we ended up with is I've got a very low poly bowl. This is my Mexican bowl. And when I begin to introduce the subdivision levels, you'll see how the levels of detail start to come into play. Start to add that kind of, I'm at the highest level here. It's got 1 million polygons to get that kind of surface that I'm looking for. Now, one of the problems is we can't use this bowl at 1 million polygons. What we want to be able to do is use that low level of, maybe not this low level, but maybe something like this, where it's a little bit more round, but still maintain all of the details of the sculpt. So right now, the level of details that I'm using are actually based on the actual geometric sculpting. So these aren't not bump maps. This is actually a sculpted geometry. If I was to turn off all of the paint and everything like that, you could see all those little squares represent the level of geometry that's needed to produce the surface structure. Now I'm not going to be climbing over this surface. I'm just going to be looking at it basically from a distance, maybe a distance of something like this. And so it's not going to be too bad. But what I want to do is I want to take this model, and because it's super high resolution, I'm going to project the normal maps, of this model that will help calculate lighting and the bumps and surface, but I can put it on a low level object. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go up to UV maps, and I'm going to say extract texture maps. And first, before I do that, I'm going to save my scene because the files that I'm going to be making will have the name of this. So I'm going to say 1.7, and I'm going to say normal maps. Normal map. It's going to be in my scene. Okay. Now I've got my scene saved, and I'm going to go up to UV and maps and say extract texture maps. I'm going to say new operation, and I'm going to say Mexican bowl version 7 normals, and I'm going to choose normal map right here. And what I want is it's going to look at a target. The target is the low resolution mesh that you want to be working with. That's what we're going to be using the normal maps for. But it's going to be basing that normal map off the source model, the high resolution map. So this is 1 million polys, and this is probably a few thousand maybe. Okay? We are going to be making this model from the same, basically, it's not a different geometry, it's just lower levels of the same geometry. Now, if I made a completely different model, I would have to use a different method. But for this method, if you hover over this, ray casting will say, choose subdivisions if you know that your source and target mesh have the same topology. Otherwise, choose ray casting. Well, this is the same topology. I'm not using a different, I didn't go into Maya and make a completely different model, but still you want to use this normal map over it. I'm going to use subdivision. This is where I can choose the size of the map. I'm going to use a 2K map, and I'm going to generate one map for all targets, and I'm going to go down and move that over. I'm using the base file name. I'm going to go into my Mexican bowl. I'm going to put it in my source images, and I'm going to call this my Mexican bowl normal version 7. So I've made some other ones, and I'm going to say it's going to be a PNG type. So I can change that if I wanted to, but I'm going to use PNG. So it's just a simple map. I'm going to say OK. And now I can go and say, I'm going to extract the map. And so it'll be extracting the map. If I look down here, it'll tell me it's finished. If it's tell me it's extracting here, I'm going to say, OK. I'm going to close this. And now you can kind of see if I go into my paint Now, if you look in your paint, you'll have a normal map value right here. And now the normal map is best, not when you have all kinds of geometry already, but when you go down, if I page down now, and I go down to maybe my level 2 or 3, where you notice that you have all this geometry, or this very basic geometry. This is, and if I turn on my normal map, it's going to retain the bumps of that model, even though I have very, very, very low geometry. So if I go into my objects, my Mexican bowl, I've got a lot of levels, but I'm at like level 2, which is just 400 and some vertices, and I'm getting the details of 1 million polys. And so that is really what I want. I want a low poly type of object. Now I want to, and if I increase, so that's going to kind of fill in the gaps of some of the details. All right, so that is something that I want to be able to do. So now what I want to be able to do is I can kind of, especially when it's in the distance, like if I see it in the distance, I don't really have to worry so much about that model. I'm not going to be super close to it. If I am, I could use that super high resolution. So that's the idea. We could take this back into Maya, and we could use that normal map as a bump map to get that level of detail on our surface. So that's extracting a bump map.